Hello! This week is a slightly bigger project. I was going through my costume box and saw a skirt that I made for Oz Comic Con 2016, where I made a Rarity-inspired gown. The skirt was thrown together at the last minute, a reoccurring theme with me. And I have never worn this skirt since. Since the fabric's not something I would wear on a daily basis, I figured why not see if I could turn it into a new costume. The goal for this is a sea sorcerer, so let's jump on in and see what we can make. Here is the skirt that we are going to transform into our sea sorcerer outfit. It's made up of 3 different layers, this sort of lame, a little iridescent layer, and then this frosted layer. I think the top 2, so the frosted and the iridescent, are going to become the sleeves and then the hood, which is probably going to be somewhat similar to the GM hood that I did, but I want to make the rim of the hood stiff so that it actually holds out, because I want the inside, at very least, if not the whole thing, to be this iridescent fabric, which I think like keeping it out like that will make it more bubble-like, which I like the idea of. So those 2 become the hood and sleeves, and then this one becomes the main skirt fabric. I also have this sort of fabric, which I want to either make into a top or like a leotard thing. I haven't quite decided because I want to have at least 1 slit, if not 2 slits up the sides. I thought leotard might work a little bit better just to hold everything in place. But this fabric is only a 2-way stretch or a 1-way stretch, depending on what terminology you use. So I'm not sure it will be ideal for a full-on leotard, but I'm still probably going to try. Speaking of the GM cloak, I also have some scraps of that left over that I was thinking I could edge like the slit in or something, or use these as little accent bits. There's not heaps, but I think I could do like little draped accents that might be interesting and just give a little bit more interest, because these 2 are fairly similar in appearance. I also coincidentally have all of this stuff in my stash, which is hilarious. Have this, which again, just feels so similar, and I kind of wanted a bit of a difference, but this might form the neck because it's elastic. But again, shimmery elastic, and I do have beads and other things that I could attach to this to maybe try and give it a bit more interest. So each of these skirt layers is made up of a roughly 4-meter long rectangle, so I should have a decent amount to work with. Generally, if you were going to make a full-length dress, you would want roughly 6 meters of fabric. This was more than floor length on me, so I may not actually do a ton of difference to this. I might cut some gores or shaping for it instead of leaving it straight. I should have enough of this. I think the bummer was I did want to try and leave some sense of covering, so I was like, oh, maybe I use the frosted layer to cover up some of this so that it's just a little bit different on the skirt to the bodice, but I don't think I will have enough unless I forego putting these on the sleeve and instead just have this as the iridescent layer on the top, and then everything else is sort of frosted. We're gonna just have a bit of a play around with it. We'll see what we can come up with for the pattern pieces and then just go from there.
Before I could begin cutting or drafting, I had to first pull apart the skirt to see what I could salvage from it. For the leotard, I ended up just tracing a 1-piece bathing suit, adding extra length where the fabric didn't have stretch, and giving it plenty of extra allowance that I could play around with on the sides. I ended up removing almost all of the extra that I added to the sides and fittings, but better to have too much fabric than not enough. To make sure both sides matched, I did a half pattern piece to be cut on the fold. Using a zigzag stitch, I sewed together the side seams first and then the crotch seam. To be able to try it on, I made a loop of elastic big enough to stretch over my head and attached the neck of the leotard to it, starting at the center point and pulling the elastic while sewing. I figured I would include some footage on how I fit on myself. It's not easy and it takes a lot of tries to get it right, but I just stand in front of a mirror and pull and twist and pin everything into place. Safety pins are usually better than straight pins for this, since they won't poke you or fall out when you are taking the garment on and off. Here I'm just marking the side seam points to be able to sew the front bodice seams and back into place. I use the same pull and stitch technique to attach the rest of the bodice to the neck and back elastic, matching side seams and center back seams to their respective points on the elastic. I wanted the skirt to have a center front panel, so I began by cutting out that first, giving it a slightly tapered angle on either side. I then cut the rest of the skirt as two big rectangles and tapered the front edges where either skirt slit would go. I stitched the back seam closed and made a waistband with the last of the sparkly elastic. I attached the center front panel to the elastic and then measured the length of the remaining elastic when stretched. I gathered the skirt pieces down to the stretched measurement, basted them to keep them at that length, and then stretched and stitched the gathered skirt pieces to the waistband. To finish off the skirt, I attached two strips of the netting to either side of the slit opening using a French seam.
So we got a really good head start yesterday. So day 2, we at least have the base dress pretty much finished. I do want to reopen the other slit over here and add the netting onto this side because I think closing it was a mistake. It looks a bit strange now. I've currently got just some embellishments pinned here, which I might go in and attach. I haven't quite decided yet. I think what needs to be done today is the hood and the sleeves, and that should tell me where to place embellishments. But hopefully we can just power through and get it done today. I'm still not 100% sure how the hood and the sleeves are going to come together. The hood's super easy and I think I can easily get it to attach on there. It's just going to be the sleeves that I'm a little hesitant on whether or not I leave the shoulders open, which does make sense to follow these lines. But I still have other options that I can do within that. And then where do they attach? And what do they attach to? Are they just sort of little strips that then just fall away? Does it instead become like a cape? I'm not sure, so I need to play around with that a little bit, the actual construction of it. So let's just jump on into day 2.
My camera cut out here, but the hood is essentially a giant rectangle. The back seam gets sewn halfway up from the neck edge. Then the other half gets gathered at the back of the head. This is repeated on both the frosted outer and iridescent lining fabrics. To keep them sitting nicely together, I tacked the lining to the mane at the back gathering points before sewing them together at the front hood edge. and then running another gathering stitch along the neck edge. I cut a 2-inch band to use as a binding edge for the neck and gathered down the hood to fit. It was then stitched to the outer edge and then folded over the raw gathered edge before being stitched into place on the lining side. I cut the remaining frosted and iridescent fabric into 2 rectangle sleeves and stitched them together just along the top edge, pressing into place as much as possible. That top back corner was then pinned into place diagonally on the outside of the hood and sewn. I decided I did like the look of neck embellishments and attached an iridescent sequin and a turquoise bead at even intervals along the neck edge. These all had to be individually sewn so the elastic could still stretch comfortably. I also added 3 droplet beads at the center and 2 side points. I used 2 hook and eye closures to attach the hood at the armhole elastic joints. The final steps were to redo the second leg slit that I previously closed using a similar method to before, and then finally hem the skirt.
Done! I've actually been sitting on this project for like a week or 2 now. I smashed out the main pieces, but I just wasn't sure how to finish it, both with getting the sleeve drape happening and deciding what to do on the waist. I ended up getting fabric for the bracers new, as well as buying the tights. Everything else was stash stuff, but the bracers do separate from the sleeve, so they're just pinned into place. So I can reuse them, and I think I'm gonna get a fair bit of use from them since they're pretty comfortable and I can swap out the laces. It's currently just elastic, so I could get it on and off myself. The tights I've just always wanted, so I just finally was like, you know what, I'm gonna indulge and I'll get this, and it'll add a little bit of sparkle and interest to my legs, given this has the huge slits in it. I also kept on sitting on it because it felt pretty and like I was proud of it, but I was just struggling to get it to feel like a sorcerer outfit. That mostly came down to styling, and once I added accessories, I think it really did come together well, including the bracers. I think this made it feel less like a princess costume and a little bit more like someone who could do magical battle. I forgot just how annoying and difficult these fabrics can be. They fray like crazy, and the cape fabric in particular, these two, the sort of frosted organza and the iridescent one, just kept wanting to slip and slide all over the place and not really neatly press anywhere, which was frustrating to deal with, to say the least. But I mean, I just tried to stick to shapes that I figured I could work within those boundaries of it being a little bit difficult, and it would still look okay. On a positive note, I got to do a bit of beading work on the collar here, which was really fun to explore, and I think added a nice little bit of interest to the neckline. I love this hood and cape, and the fact that it's detachable means that I can easily use it anywhere else. It's just got little hook and eyes tucked under here, which you saw me attach. But it's just, I really like that I tried to really focus on making this modular so that I could reuse it and it wouldn't just end up sitting like the skirt did. Overall, I am so happy with the full effect of the outfit. And I think even with my hair up like this, it looks really cute. If a little bit like jelly princess-y, but I'm down with that. That is it for this project. If you like this video, you can check out my other videos. And if you really like this video, you can feel free to subscribe. I hope you have a lovely week. Bye.